Hello, once again, and welcome to the Credit Bank Small Business Spotlight. On this show, we put the spotlight on inspiring business owners. We learn their stories and they share what drives their success. We are sponsored by Credit Bank, where you can get up to $500,000 in working capital in less time than it takes you to drive to the bank. I'm your host, Irv Cruz, and today I have the pleasure of being joined by Shaina Denny. She is the CEO of Dogdrop, who's revolutionizing the pet care industry with a scalable, tech-driven franchise model. Shaina, thank you so much for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you.
Irv, thanks so much. I'm excited to chat with you today.
Yes, yes. So let's get this started because I'm excited to hear all about you and your company. I want to start by just going back to the very beginning. Like, what was going on in your world prior to starting Dog Drop, and what gave you that motivation and drive and desire to start this business in particular?
Yeah, so before starting Dogdrop, I actually was living and working in China. I went
Oh,
to
wow.
business school there in Shanghai and ended up staying about 3.5 years. And when I returned back to the US, I literally got a dog on day one. Like we met at LAX, touched down essentially together. And my work was pretty flexible. I was still working China business hours. So I basically had until 3 p.m. in the day to do whatever I needed to get done, but I still was looking for a place to get my dog out for a couple hours at a time.
Okay.
So, like a lot of people in pet care, and I think that's super interesting about this industry, is they weren't in it before and then they got a dog. So, that's definitely part of my story as well.
Okay. And as you know, it's a question that I ask most of my guests, if not all. Most businesses are built to either address a problem or a need. So what specific problem or need does your business solve or address? And who do you help the most with your company?
Yeah, great question. I always laugh. Dog daycare isn't new, but I think the way we're doing it is we're not putting rockets in outer space, but we're just solving, common pain points and coming with a solution that's common sense to us. So we want to have one convenient location. So this was something when I looked to take my dog to dog daycare, I
Mm,
was driving like 15 minutes away. Then I was off the side of the freeway at a big boarding type of warehouse zoning area, and then the other thing was they had specific drop off and pickup times, so it wasn't flexible. And before you know it, I'm like, I'm just trying to drop my dog off for like 2 hours. They're like,
right.
we don't have space. You should have called. Well, they didn't answer. I don't know who is watching the dog. Where is this place? Like, okay, well now you have to pay for a full day, even if your dog wanted to be dropped off for only 2 hours. So what we ended up doing was like, how do we just build something that people want to use? And at the end of the day, that's what our business is. Just very simple, convenient, flexible dog daycare.
And when you came up with the concept and you wanted to put this plan in motion, what did you do to, spread the word, market yourself, let everybody know what you are and who you are and even where you are?
Yeah, good point. So we tried a couple things. The initial, we didn't know how we were going to solve the problem. I just knew what the problem was. So it's like, do we go to dog friendly offices and service their dogs at these offices? How do we reach people? Everyone's saying, Airbnb doesn't have any hotels. Obviously, there's Wag and Rover. They don't have boarding facilities too. So we weren't sure what the solution was. So we
Okay.
tried a few things. And what we ended up kind of really continuing was the dog drop model, just smaller footprint locations. And to prove that out, we're building a brick and mortar business. So I'm not sure who here is listening, whatever type of business that you're building, brick and mortar is definitely a bit more capital intensive. So
Right.
we went out. Obviously, I wish we had Credit Bank when we started, could have saved ourselves a lot of time, but we ended up raising venture capital and we had a plan. But in order to pitch this concept, I had to show, could people even, do they want to use it? Will they pay for it?
Right.
So what I did was create a landing page just to collect leads. So I presented a fake idea, a concept, and I just put it out there and posted it and said, would people even sign up to click learn more? And that's really what we went off of.
And how long have you been doing this? How long has
So yeah,
Dog Drop been in business?
we opened the first location January 2020.
Oh wow. Okay. So actually during COVID. So what was that like for you?
Operationally, I think every business had their challenges with COVID, but one of the core things that we've done differently and really leaned into at Dog Drop was creating the quick stop category that we
Right.
really folks, if you want to drop off your dog for 30 minutes, you just pay for 30 minutes. Most people probably do 90 minutes at minimum. So during
Right, right.
COVID was a strong proof point. Everyone's more than capable of physically being at home with their dogs, besides first responders and other folks, but they still want to get their dog out for an hour or two to exercise and socialize. So it's a very strong proof point on our concept. And then operationally, we've all lived that. We can move forward on that point. Enough is enough sometimes.
Right. And when early on, and even in current times, but running a business, as you know, it has its challenges. So in your experience, what was one of the biggest hurdles that you faced and how did you overcome it?
Sure. So I always laugh. I think like getting started is easy. Like you're kind of like have like you see the excitement, you're excited, and then actually having that vision come true, that's where the difficult part is, right? Especially like
Right.
a smaller company when you're the founder, you're getting started. So whatever service you're offering, if you're opening a coffee shop, you're probably the one making that coffee and serving your first customers. You're doing a home service brand, you might be servicing those first few customers as well. And the same with us at Dog Drop. But we were working all day, every day to service. So you're doing it exactly the way that you envisioned. And then when now you have to grow that business, that for us was the challenge because humans are humans. We are people and we're not all perfect. And what I
Right.
think is common sense might not be your common sense. And what I think is best judgment may not be your best judgment. And so when you have a strong vision and you want to bring it to life, that for us was definitely, and it still is for sure, a challenge. Anything that's a strong people business, that managing people and making sure that they're delivering on your service delivery and brand promises. That one was a big learning curve for us.
And you mentioned, when you were looking to launch this, it was capital intensive and you actually, you know, gave me a little sneak preview into one of the questions that I wanted to ask you. Can you share with our viewers? You mentioned you got some venture capital. Can you share with our viewers how you went about that process in securing that capital?
Sure. And I always like to say there's so many different financing options that that's not for everyone. At that time, given my background, that was actually the only financing option I knew. It's so funny, like how naive you are looking back, and you're like, oh
Right.
man, if I would have known what I've known now, I might have done things differently. But there's so many other financing options that may not be the one, whether it's an SBA loan, whether it's a line of credit, a small
Correct.
business loan. So before diving into venture, I always really tell people what kind of business are you building and what do you need the capital for? Because that's going to define a lot about who and how you should be getting that capital. But given my background, I kind of just went straight into the venture world. And I think definitely you have to have a proof of concept, especially now. There's never been a better time to start a business. If you can't code or engineer anything like that, there are so
Right.
many AI tools available that you need to be able to show an MVP, as well, a minimum viable product to someone to really believe in it and see a proof of concept.
Shayna, that is great information. And I thank you for sharing that, with our listeners because, uh, we never know who's watching. As I told
Yeah.
you, even before we started this podcast, it's either, aspiring business owners or business owners that have already done it, but they can probably, take some information from individuals like yourself that have been there, done that, And if they want to start another business, they might have, a better path to go. So I want to thank you once again for that. So you've been in business for almost 5 years, or have you hit that 5 year mark
A
yet?
little over, yeah, I think 5 years actually was a couple weeks ago.
Oh,
So we're
congratulations.
half a decade down.
Awesome. Awesome. So I always ask this question: in those 5 years, what has been your absolute proudest moment or biggest achievement thus far?
Oh man, that's a great question. I think it comes in bits and waves of small things.
Okay.
I don't have this overwhelming feeling. So we're a franchise brand, so it's
Okay.
great when you know signing that franchise agreement. You're like, oh, to have someone else believe so much in your product, service, and most of all your team and support that we deliver to our franchise owners. That's a pretty great moment, and it knows that hey, we have a lot to fulfill, like signing the agreement. That it's the same thing as starting business. That's the easy part. That's when everyone's all excited, but once the work starts coming in, that's when it's really important for us to deliver on that promise. I think for us it's a lot of that small stuff when you see, it sounds probably silly, but the Google reviews coming in, and
Right.
sometimes the keywords our customers saying, I'm like, man, that is exactly what I thought about 5, 6 years ago when we were starting this business of what we were building. And to see people like use those keywords or that jargon and the exact way that you describe that concept come to life, I think those are the things that really excites me.
And how many franchise owners do you have right now?
Yeah, so right now we have a handful. We're currently operating in Los Angeles, Denver, Fort Lauderdale, and we have a handful of new locations. So we're still
Okay.
definitely early days. We have a lot of learnings as well that we're going through, have had, and we will have much more of them, I'm sure.
That's fantastic. So where do you see your business in the next 2 years?
Sure. So right now we're at 4 units open. We should have an additional 6 units open within the next 12 to 14 months, given we stay
Okay.
on track. And that's always the challenge, right? You can have that vision, but it's staying on track in the execution part. And then I think it's how to multiply that number from there. I think we have a smaller footprint dog daycare model. It's a membership model. So we want to
Okay.
meet our end users, the pet parents, where they're at. We don't want them to have to go out of their way. So it's when we enter a new market, we think, how do we get to 2 to 3 units to get started with? And I think we see a world with lots of dog drops.
That would be I'd like to see him out here in Tampa too. I mean, I don't I
Yeah.
shared my story with you about
Yep.
our dogs, but I most of my friends own dogs, and certainly something that I would be more than happy to recommend if you establish yourself in the Tampa St. Pete area. If you had the perfect resources of support in place right now, what would you change about your business tomorrow?
Oh, you're coming in hot with these good questions.
You
Uh,
know?
that's a good one because even if you're given the resources, it's about the execution. It's number, and I think
That
that's
is correct.
important for business owners. The amount of people. If only I had the money. If only I had the team. If only I had people. Then what? Right? So I think as well we're doing it. We have the people, but always, however many people you have, you think you need more. However much money you have, you think you need more, right?
Right.
So I think we're in the spot. We're doing what we're doing, and we're on that path, whether we have today's resources or tomorrow, and that's the path we're on. So I think it's just about delivering on our promise and that we have to our own investors, to our own franchisees, and yeah, our goal is to open more units. Um,
Yeah, that's a great answer. Well, Shayna, it's been great learning about Dogdrop and how you're making a difference in your space with your model. For those that want to connect with you, how would they find you?
sure, you can find me on LinkedIn. Just type in my name, Shaina Denny. I'm also pretty active on X, formerly Twitter. My first and last name is Shaina Denny. If you Google Dog Drop, you'll see it pop up. So I'm always happy to connect with other business owners, whether it's to partner together, share resources, or just say, hey, I'm around.
Okay. And your website?
Yeah, dogdrop.co.
Dogdrop.co. Doesn't get any
Keep it
easier than
simple.
that. Well, thank you so much, Shayna, for sharing your story with us today. To our listeners, if you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and tune in for more inspiring business spotlights. Until next time, I'm your host, Irv Cruz, and we'll see you on the next Credit Bank Small Business Spotlight. Shayna, once again, thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed this video, click here to watch another exciting episode.